All right, so for this video, we have a little bit of a different setup. We're actually in the corner of the living room here, and I have a Key 37 and then some little Atom baby monitors. I think they're the D3Vs, which, quick review, if you need an amazing pair of monitors for 300 bucks, they're pretty phenomenal and I highly recommend them. But in this video, we're going to be talking about MPC progressions. In the first half of the video, we're going to be talking about what they are. But then in the second half, I'm going to show you a couple of tricks and tips on how to use progressions to kind of speed up your workflow and come up with some more creative ideas. Now, to say thank you to all my Patreon subscribers, I actually just uploaded a progressions pack that you can go there, download it for free. It's filled with a bunch of neo soul, R&B, jazz chords that you can just import into your MPC. And then you have a whole bunch of new progressions to play with. So without further ado, let's jump over here to the Key 37 and check out one, what progressions are, but then in the second half, how we can creatively utilize them to come up with new ideas. All right, so for this, we're on the Key 37 and we have an instance of Hype pulled up with just a warm pad. Now, what Pad Performer is, it's a way to play keyboard essentially on the pads right here. If you're on an MPC that doesn't have a keyboard or you just want to experiment, to get to Pad Performer from the main screen, we're going to go right down here to the lower right corner and we see this little 16 grid pad icon. We click on that and we're in Pad Performer. Now, by default, it's going to open up in just the chromatic mode, which allows us to play the notes chromatically. We can, however, change it to notes and then adjust our root note and our scale, and then do a melody over the top, and every note you hit is going to be in the key of that song. Now, there's a couple of other options. You can go into chords right here, which allow you then to play chords. And the chord configuration is right here. We can open up a menu and change the chord. We can have a seventh on there to give it a little bit more tension. And these chords will match, again, whatever the key and the type of scale is going on. We have chromatic chords, and now we have progressions. And essentially think of progressions as a chord progression. Here we have which one it is, and the MPC comes with quite a decent variety: ballad, dance, gospel, jazz, and pop. We're in pop, and we're going to go to pop number 3. And let's just change this to our standard C scale. Now, the reason I changed it to that is I'm not the most proficient keyboard player, but I do know the C scale, which is just all the white keys right here, and it makes it really easy. Now, if we play the pads, we're going to find that we have a pretty cool progression. And as we go up in the pads, the chords are going to get a little bit more complex, adding some tension, adding a good amount of variety. And we can find a whole bunch of different chord progressions inside the MPC to get our idea up and going. Now, the reason why I picked C for this example is we can actually use the keyboard and the pads simultaneously. So if I, let's say, go up an octave for the keys, and then play the pads down here, I can solo over the different chords. Cool, so now we can play around, find a chord progression, and we can solo over it with one instrument. So that's essentially what progressions are, is they are a set of chords that you can get inspiration. But you can actually play in your own chords and convert that to a progression. Okay, so why would I actually want to play in my chords and then convert them to a progression and play them on the pads? Well, let's say I know some basic piano and I can play some chords, but I don't have the dexterity to switch in between the chords really fast. So if my chord progression is something along the lines of this, to that, to that, and to that, but I'm playing something really fast and I want to maybe do some house stabs or something that switches, and I don't have the dexterity to actually play those in that quickly. This is where we would actually record our chords, convert them to a progression, and then load them on the pads here. So we actually don't have to play all those chords rapidly right after each other. All I'm going to do is loop a little 2-bar section, let it pass through a couple of times, and then record each one of those chords into here so I have it in the arranger. First chord, let it go around and I can set up for the next one. And let me set up for my third one here. So now that we've gone ahead and just recorded our 3 chords into the arranger, we can hit the pencil icon here. And down in the lower left, we see convert to progression. So let's do that. First thing I want to do is name this. So whatever my song name is, I'm going to put it right in here just so I can remember where this chord progression came from. And we can see that it identified the root, which is F, key of the song is F, and that it shows the first chord is F. If we click on here, we can actually go through and see what the other chords are. So then I go to a D sharp, and then I go to an A sharp over F. And if we hit the little play button, it'll actually give us a preview of what that chord sounds like. So now that I've named it, I'm going to go ahead and just hit do it and save that progression. Now, if I come back in to the track tab on the main screen and go into the lower right, go back into my progressions, before we were on Pop 03, I'm going to click on this, and then I should see a new tab that says Other right here. So now I'm going to select my song, and as you can see, here are my 3 chords that I played, the C, B flat or A sharp, and then the third one, and then it just starts it over again, showing me the root on each chord. Now, if I had more of an upbeat song, I could play around with playing these chords in a rhythmic fashion. And I don't have to worry about having the finger dexterity. So there's one advantage of actually taking the chords that you're going to play and putting them into the progressions. But let's take that one step further. What we're actually going to do is we're going to have it so these pads are going to be playing a pad sound while we're going to be using another instrument allocated to the keyboard to freestyle over it and come up with some ideas. So how are we going to do that? Well, first thing we're going to do is find our track menu. On the key 37, if we just hit shift and press or double press, we go into this track overview menu. Or if we want, we can click the upper left and go into the main menu and then look for an icon that says track view. It looks like this with a bunch of lines and a little magnifying glass. So we go into this. And what this is in the MPC, it's an overview of everything that's going on within our projects. It's going to show all of our tracks, whether they're audio tracks or a drum track, but we're down here working with our keys. We can see the last one that we worked with is selected here, and I can select any of them, and it will then play that. Now, what we can do is if we look at the input right here, by default it always goes to all inputs, but we can select and dedicate that the pads only go to a certain track, and then the keyboard goes to another specific track. If you had a bunch of MIDI controllers connected, let's say you had a MPC 1 Plus and you had an external MIDI, it would show up in here as the name of the MIDI controller right there. So by default, the MIDI input port is going to be set to all ports on both of these. But what we can do is we can actually go in here and change it. So this is my lead, and I want that to respond to the keyboard. Now I want my pads to respond to just the MPC pads. Now what I'm going to have to do, and this is crucial, is I need to record activate both of these so they're both responding to whichever input that we already allocated. So if I hold shift and hit that, now we have both of these different tracks record armed. So I can play this and I have my pads going on, and I can freestyle a solo . So that way I can utilize both the chord progression, whether it's one that I converted into a progression or one default. As long as I know the scale and how to play the scale, I can play my chords on one track and then also do a melody line over the top of that. So that's one way of doing it. Now, another way of doing it, if we want to be extra careful that there's no crosstalk between the channels, we can do what is called a keyboard split. So if I know I'm just going to be freestyling from A and above in this section, and I'm on my lead right here, I can say my lowest note, I want to hit learn, and tap that. Now, nothing is going to happen down here below the key split, and it only happens above the key split. And now if I want to make sure that there's absolutely no chance of crosstalk between these two tracks, I'm going to go down to my pad track and select Learn on the highest note and select the A flat right underneath the A that I set for that. And now what we have is up here is only the lead, and down here I actually have the pads, but I actually have these MPC pads with the chord progression here. So by utilizing both of these methods, both with just allocating the MIDI input to the different tracks, record enabling them at the same time, and then having them separated here, or doing something along the lines of a key split as well, you're able to really take advantage of having the progressions and then putting your own human melodic element on top of it. So as a music producer, I really advise you even just to know the basics of the C major and the A minor, which are the exact same keys, you just start on a different root note. With just those two scales, or essentially that one scale, you can actually record whatever you want and then just use the transpose function to shift the key of it and create a song in pretty much any key you want. So now that we have this set up, let's swipe out here and go to our arranger. Let's just record a little idea in. So we just recorded this in C major, but we have someone coming in that maybe is in a lower register or a higher register, and we want to change this idea to match where they're comfortable singing on top of it. If we double click and go into the track settings right here and go all the way down to the bottom, we see transpose. So let's just go down, let's say 4 on both of these. So 4 steps on each one, coming in here. And now when we listen back, we've just transposed that idea to match with who's ever doing vocals on top of it, so they're in a more comfortable range. So I hope that kind of helped you see the power of the progressions inside the MPC. And of course, you can always put your own chords in there, convert them to a progression, and then play them on the pads in different styles. If you don't have the finger dexterity to do it with the speed, and also using the key split feature and allocating the keypads and the keyboard to different tracks in order to play the chords and then solo over them is a really nice creative way to spend some time coming up with new ideas. You might discover something on there. And again, if you're part of the Patreon community, there is a free progressions pack there that you can bring into your MPC and hopefully get some new ideas on that. Link is down below. In the meantime, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Go make some music.